Hello there, and welcome to Sleepy Science. Ecology explains how millions of living organisms coordinate without communication or leadership. There is no central system managing forests, oceans, or climates, yet balance is maintained. Energy moves, populations regulate, and resources recycle through rules that were never designed. These processes operate continuously, whether they are observed or not. In this video, we'll examine how ecological systems function and why stability emerges without control. Ecology studies how living systems organize themselves without any central control. Every ecosystem, whether it is a small pond or a large forest, operates without a manager or a plan. No single plant, animal, or microorganism decides how the system will work. Instead, balance appears naturally from the interactions of all living things. When herbivores eat plants, they limit plant growth in a way that allows other species to survive. Predators control herbivore populations, preventing them from becoming too large. Nutrients, water, and energy move through ecosystems in cycles, and every species contributes without knowing the bigger picture. Even microbes, tiny bacteria, and fungi play a role by breaking down dead material and returning nutrients to the soil. These interactions create a self-sustaining system where everything has a role, whether it is noticeable or not. What is surprising is that ecosystems can recover after disturbances. If a storm destroys part of a forest, remaining plants and animals adjust. Some species return later, while new species may move in. Over time, balance is restored naturally. Scientists study these patterns to predict changes and understand how to protect the environment. They have found that even small organisms, like plankton in the oceans, maintain critical processes that affect the entire planet. This shows that ecology is a system running continuously, silently, and efficiently, without a central guide. Every ecosystem functions through rules that are never written but always followed. These rules are not created by humans or any other intelligent being. Instead, they emerge from interactions between living organisms and their surroundings. For example, predator-prey relationships, plant growth patterns, and nutrient cycles follow consistent patterns, even though no one enforces them. The fact that these rules are followed automatically is what allows ecosystems to remain stable over long periods. Plants compete for sunlight, but they also allow smaller plants to survive in the shade. Animals eat and reproduce in ways that maintain the population without destroying resources. Even decomposers, which recycle dead matter, follow natural processes that prevent accumulation of waste. These invisible rules explain why ecosystems can appear chaotic on the surface but remain organized when observed over time. Energy moves from the sun to plants, then to herbivores, then to predators, and finally back to decomposers, creating cycles that sustain life. Populations grow and shrink in response to available resources, but the system as a whole continues to function. Scientists can study these patterns and sometimes even predict changes, but they cannot create them artificially because the rules arise naturally. Observing an ecosystem closely reveals that the instructions are hidden in the interactions themselves, not in any central command. The oldest ecosystems formed in oceans more than 3 billion years ago. Life began in the water because it provided stability, nutrients, and protection from harsh conditions on land. Early single-celled organisms absorbed sunlight and nutrients, forming the first ecological systems. Over time, these organisms altered their environment. Photosynthesis began releasing oxygen into the water and eventually the atmosphere, making it possible for more complex life to exist. Tiny interactions between microorganisms created conditions for other species to survive. Simple algae and bacteria influenced chemical cycles, temperature, and even the formation of rocks. As these systems evolved, layers of life appeared. Microorganisms formed mats, small plants began to grow near shorelines, and eventually multicellular organisms appeared. Each layer of life depended on the previous one, creating complexity without planning. The interactions of these early ecosystems set the foundation for forests, grasslands, and oceans as we know them today. Even now, scientists study ancient marine ecosystems to understand how life organized itself without any central control. These early systems prove that ecological organization is not a human invention, but a natural outcome of interaction, energy flow, and survival. Single-celled organisms were enough to change Earth's atmosphere permanently. For billions of years, life on Earth existed as microscopic cells, invisible to the naked eye. At first, these cells were very simple, absorbing nutrients and dividing to make more of themselves. Despite their size, their activity had a massive impact on the planet. Certain single-celled organisms began performing photosynthesis, a process where sunlight is converted into energy while producing oxygen as a byproduct. At the time, Earth's atmosphere had almost no free oxygen, and the environment was dominated by gases like methane and carbon dioxide. As these microorganisms multiplied, they released small amounts of oxygen continuously over millions of years. No one organism controlled the process, and there was no plan, yet the cumulative effect was enormous. Oxygen started to accumulate in oceans first and eventually reached the atmosphere. This process, known as the Great Oxidation Event, was a turning point in the history of life. It made the environment suitable for new forms of life that relied on oxygen. Interestingly, while oxygen allowed some life forms to thrive, it was toxic to others. Many species disappeared, while new species evolved that could tolerate or use oxygen for energy. This shows how even the simplest forms of life can have a long-term impact on the planet. The changes they caused were not immediate. They happened slowly over millions of years, yet the results were permanent. The air we breathe today and the conditions that allow large animals and humans to exist are the product of these microscopic organisms. Studying them teaches us that life, no matter how small, can shape entire planetary systems over time. The story of single-celled organisms also reminds us that life's influence is cumulative. Small actions repeated consistently, even without intention, can transform an environment in ways that seem unimaginable. Oxygen accumulated slowly, altering which life forms could survive. After single-celled organisms began producing oxygen, the gas did not fill the atmosphere overnight. Instead, it built up gradually over hundreds of millions of years. In the oceans, oxygen first reacted with dissolved minerals and iron, forming layers of rusted rock that can still be seen in ancient geological formations. Only after these reactions were saturated did oxygen begin to accumulate in the atmosphere. This slow process meant that life had to adjust. Organisms that could tolerate or use oxygen survived, while others that could not were forced to adapt or die. The rise of oxygen changed the way energy was used in living systems. Oxygen allows cells to extract more energy from food than anaerobic processes. As a result, organisms could grow larger and develop more complex structures. Environments that were once dominated by small, simple organisms gradually became capable of supporting multicellular life. Forests, animals, and eventually humans became possible because oxygen provided a more efficient energy system. This change also created new ecological relationships. Predators and prey emerged, food chains became longer, and ecosystems became more interconnected. It is fascinating that such a slow chemical change dictated the path of evolution. Nothing planned for this to happen. It emerged from the natural activity of microorganisms over immense periods. The slow accumulation of oxygen demonstrates how gradual processes can define which species thrive and which vanish. Studying this helps scientists understand why some ecosystems are resilient while others collapse under stress. Today, the oxygen in our atmosphere remains a constant reminder of how microscopic life altered the planet in ways that allowed more complex life to exist. This shift triggered the rise of complex organisms without planning or direction. Once oxygen became a significant part of the atmosphere, life could use it to fuel more energy-demanding processes. Cells could grow larger, form specialized tissues, and eventually combine to create multicellular organisms. This did not happen because of intention or design. It happened as a direct result of environmental conditions and natural selection. The rise of complexity was a natural response to a changing atmosphere, where energy availability allowed organisms to explore new forms of life. Complex organisms began to appear in the oceans first, where conditions were stable and nutrients abundant. These organisms could move, feed, and reproduce in ways that single-celled life could not. New ecological roles emerged. Some organisms became predators, others scavengers, and some symbiotic partners. Each interaction contributed to a web of relationships that strengthened ecosystems. Over time, more complex structures, such as skeletons and shells, evolved because they offered advantages like protection or support. This period marks a turning point in Earth's history because it set the stage for the diversity of life we see today. Every adaptation was a response to available energy, competition, and environmental pressures, not a planned outcome. Life became more resilient and capable of surviving in varied environments. Studying this period shows that complexity can emerge naturally when conditions allow it. It also illustrates that the path of evolution is not linear. It is shaped by countless interactions and environmental changes. The rise of complex life is proof that natural processes alone, without planning or control, can create systems capable of sustaining vast diversity. Land ecosystems emerged only after plants stabilized soil and temperature. Life on land did not appear immediately after oceans formed. The surface of the Earth was harsh, with extreme temperatures, dry conditions, and little protection from sunlight. Early plants, such as mosses and liverworts, were among the first organisms to colonize land. Though small, they had a significant impact. By growing on rocks and bare soil, they helped trap moisture and reduced evaporation from the ground. Their presence also slowed temperature changes between day and night, creating a more stable environment. These early plants altered their surroundings in ways that made it possible for other life forms to survive. Insects and small animals could move onto land safely because temperatures were less extreme and food sources were available. The simple mats of plants created microhabitats where water and nutrients were retained. Over time, these small changes expanded, allowing larger plants to take root. The more plants grew, the more soil became stable, and the ground could support more complex ecosystems. Forests, grasslands, and shrublands all relied on this gradual process of stabilization. Without plants, soil would have washed away during rainfall, and temperatures would remain unpredictable. The emergence of land ecosystems depended entirely on these early colonizers, showing that even the smallest organisms can shape the environment. This process took millions of years, but it laid the foundation for life on land. Studying this period helps scientists understand why plants are essential for ecosystem stability today. Their role in creating habitable conditions demonstrates that ecosystems are not only a result of individual species, but also of the way species interact with their environment. By observing how plants stabilized land, we can see the first steps of life adapting to terrestrial conditions, forming the basis for all land ecosystems that exist now. Roots altered geology by breaking rock into usable nutrients. The appearance of plants with roots was a turning point in Earth's history. Roots did not only anchor plants, they physically and chemically altered the rocks they grew in. As roots grew into cracks in rocks, they exerted pressure, slowly breaking the rock into smaller fragments. Over time, this process created soil, making the land more habitable for other plants and organisms. This mechanical action alone was significant, but roots also released chemicals that helped dissolve minerals in rocks, turning them into nutrients that could be absorbed by plants. This process transformed barren landscapes into fertile ground. Rocks that once had no value to living organisms were gradually converted into sources of essential elements like calcium, magnesium, and potassium. Microorganisms in the soil further assisted by breaking down these minerals even more efficiently. Roots and microorganisms worked together in a system that required no awareness or planning, yet it produced complex results. The nutrients released by roots fueled plant growth, which in turn strengthened ecosystems. Over millions of years, this interaction between roots, rocks, and microorganisms changed entire landscapes. The ability of plants to alter geology also influenced climate. As soil formed, it could retain more water, preventing rapid evaporation and regulating temperature near the surface. This allowed other species to survive in environments that were previously too harsh. The slow chemical and physical work of roots demonstrates how life can modify Earth systems, preparing the land for diverse ecosystems. Observing this process today shows that every part of an ecosystem, even the smallest roots, plays a role in shaping habitats. Life on land became possible because plants could change the very structure of the earth beneath them. Soil became a layered system, each layer serving a different function. Once plants began stabilizing land and roots started breaking down rocks, soil began to develop structure. Soil is not a single uniform material. It forms in layers called horizons, each with a specific role. The top layer, rich in organic material, is where plants grow and where most microorganisms live. Beneath that is a layer of minerals mixed with organic matter, providing water and nutrients to deeper roots. Lower layers consist mainly of weathered rock that slowly releases minerals over time. This layering allows ecosystems to function efficiently. Plants draw nutrients and water from the upper and middle layers, while relying on the deeper layers for minerals that are slowly replenished. Microorganisms and fungi operate mostly in the top layer, recycling dead material and preventing accumulation of waste. Insects and burrowing animals help mix layers, improving water flow and aeration. Each layer interacts with others in a system that maintains fertility, moisture, and stability. The formation of layered soil was essential for the expansion of land ecosystems. It allowed forests, grasslands, and other habitats to develop diverse plant life. Without these layers, water would drain too quickly, nutrients would be lost, and plants could not establish permanent growth. Soil layers also act as storage systems for water and nutrients, ensuring that ecosystems can survive periods of drought or nutrient scarcity. This process shows that ecosystems are organized through the combination of living and non-living components, all working together without a central manager. Studying soil today reveals the hidden architecture beneath ecosystems and explains why healthy soil is the foundation of life on land. Beneath the surface, more life exists than above it. While forests, grasslands, and oceans seem full of life, the majority of living organisms actually exist underground or within water and soil layers. Soil is home to billions of microorganisms in every handful. Bacteria, fungi, protozoa, and tiny invertebrates work continuously to break down dead material, recycle nutrients, and maintain soil structure. Even a small patch of dirt can contain more living organisms than all the visible life on the same surface area. Roots of plants extend deep into the soil, forming networks with fungi and microorganisms. These networks allow plants to access water and nutrients that are unavailable at the surface. Fungi, in particular, connect roots from different plants, creating underground systems that distribute resources where they are needed most. This hidden activity stabilizes ecosystems, supports plant growth, and allows surface life to flourish. Earthworms and other burrowing animals also play a role by aerating soil, mixing layers, and improving water retention. The significance of this underground life is often underestimated. Without it, plants would struggle to grow, nutrients would not cycle efficiently, and ecosystems would collapse. These organisms operate without visibility or attention, yet they control much of the energy and material flow in an ecosystem. This hidden world also serves as a buffer during environmental changes. During droughts or heavy rainfall, underground systems retain water and nutrients, reducing stress on surface life. Understanding the life beneath the surface gives insight into how resilient ecosystems can be. Most of this life works silently, without conscious effort, following natural processes that have developed over millions of years. Observing soil ecosystems shows that the visible world above ground is only a fraction of what keeps ecosystems alive and functioning. The hidden complexity beneath our feet is essential for life on land, connecting energy, nutrients, and species in a continuously operating network. Energy enters ecosystems through sunlight, but only a small fraction is captured. The sun is the primary source of energy for almost all life on Earth, but surprisingly, only a tiny portion of sunlight is actually used by living organisms. Plants, algae, and some bacteria capture sunlight through a process called photosynthesis. They convert light energy into chemical energy, which fuels growth and reproduction. However, most sunlight is either reflected by surfaces or passes through plants without being absorbed. Even with low efficiency, the energy captured by photosynthesis drives entire ecosystems. Plants use this energy to create sugars, which serve as food for herbivores. Herbivores, in turn, are eaten by predators, and eventually decomposers recycle energy from dead organisms back into the system. This means that a small input of sunlight supports complex food webs involving thousands of species. The limited capture of sunlight also explains why ecosystems have energy constraints. Only so many plants can grow in a given area because there is only so much sunlight available. Energy limits the size of populations and the structure of ecosystems. Seasonal changes, shading, and competition for sunlight all influence how energy flows. Even underwater, light penetration controls where photosynthetic organisms can survive, shaping the distribution of life. Studying the efficiency of sunlight use reveals the balance in ecosystems. Nature has designed systems where energy is conserved, transferred, and reused carefully. While sunlight is abundant, ecosystems rely on the selective capture and distribution of energy to maintain stability. This explains why productivity varies across environments, from deserts to rainforests. Observing how sunlight powers ecosystems shows that life depends on a continuous, controlled flow of energy, despite the low efficiency of capture. Plants convert light into chemical energy with low efficiency but high stability. Photosynthesis is the process by which plants transform sunlight into sugars that fuel life. Surprisingly, plants only convert about 1–2% of sunlight into usable energy. Most light either reflects off leaves or passes through without being absorbed. Even with this low efficiency, the process is incredibly stable and reliable, functioning day after day across millions of ecosystems. The stability of photosynthesis allows ecosystems to function over long periods. Plants use the energy to grow, reproduce, and provide food for other organisms. This energy moves through food chains, supporting herbivores, predators, and decomposers. Despite the small fraction of sunlight captured, the process produces enough energy to sustain forests, grasslands, and oceans worldwide. Plants also store energy in roots, stems, and seeds, which ensures that energy is available even when sunlight is limited, such as during cloudy days or winter. The low efficiency also shapes ecosystem structure. Because plants cannot capture all the energy around them, competition arises. Taller plants shade smaller ones, and leaf arrangement affects light absorption. This competition determines which plants dominate and which survive in different environments. It also drives adaptation and diversity, as plants develop strategies to maximize sunlight capture. Studying photosynthesis reveals that ecosystems rely on slow, controlled energy capture rather than rapid or excessive growth. The process shows how life organizes itself efficiently, distributing energy across species and habitats in a stable way. Even though plants use only a small fraction of sunlight, the energy they capture forms the foundation of all food webs, supporting life on Earth with remarkable consistency and reliability. This inefficiency prevents uncontrolled growth. Plants convert only a small fraction of sunlight into energy, which might seem like a limitation, but it actually plays a crucial role in keeping ecosystems stable. If plants were able to convert all available sunlight efficiently, they could grow unchecked, consuming all available water, nutrients, and space. This would lead to imbalances, as there would not be enough resources to support other species like herbivores and decomposers. The low efficiency of energy capture naturally limits plant growth, ensuring that ecosystems remain balanced over time. Because only a small amount of sunlight is converted into chemical energy, plants must compete for light, space, and nutrients. This competition determines which plants thrive in specific environments, creating a dynamic but controlled structure. It also allows multiple species to coexist, because no single plant can dominate an entire area. The energy limitation creates a system where resources are shared, populations remain within sustainable limits, and diversity is maintained. This inefficiency also affects food chains. Since only a fraction of energy is captured at the base of the system, it moves slowly upward through herbivores, predators, and decomposers. This slow transfer prevents rapid population explosions that could destabilize the ecosystem. In other words, the limitation in energy capture is a natural form of regulation, ensuring that life grows at a sustainable pace. Studying this process helps scientists understand why some ecosystems are dense and productive, while others remain sparse. Deserts, for example, receive sunlight but lack the water and nutrients necessary for high-energy conversion, which keeps plant growth limited. Meanwhile, tropical forests convert more energy due to favorable conditions, but even there, growth is regulated naturally. Understanding how inefficiency controls growth shows that ecosystems rely not on control or intelligence, but on natural limits that create long-term stability. Herbivores transfer energy upward while limiting plant dominance. Herbivores, such as deer, rabbits, and insects, play a key role in moving energy through ecosystems. When they eat plants, they take the chemical energy stored in leaves, stems, and roots and make it available for predators or decomposers. In this way, herbivores act as energy conduits, transferring sunlight captured by plants to higher levels of the food chain. Without herbivores, energy would remain trapped in plant matter, and ecosystems would function less efficiently. At the same time, herbivores naturally limit plant growth. By eating leaves and shoots, they prevent plants from becoming too dense, which would reduce sunlight penetration and limit growth for other species. This keeps plant populations in check and allows for greater biodiversity. Open spaces created by herbivore grazing also provide habitats for small animals, insects, and other plants. Herbivores influence the shape and structure of ecosystems in ways that are not directed or planned. For example, in savannas, grazing animals prevent trees from overtaking grasslands, maintaining a balance between open areas and wooded patches. In forests, insects feeding on plants affect which species dominate and which survive, creating dynamic interactions that support ecosystem stability. The movement of energy through herbivores ensures that predators have food, decomposers recycle waste, and nutrients circulate efficiently. By controlling plant populations while transferring energy upward, herbivores maintain a continuous cycle that sustains life at multiple levels. Observing herbivore activity reveals a system that regulates itself naturally, with each species performing a role that supports the larger network of life. Their presence demonstrates how ecosystems balance energy and population without central control or planning, keeping life stable and functional. Predators prevent population collapse by removing imbalance. Predators, such as wolves, big cats, and birds of prey, play a crucial role in maintaining the stability of ecosystems. By hunting herbivores or smaller animals, they control populations and prevent any single species from becoming too numerous. If predators were removed, herbivore populations could grow uncontrollably, consuming too many plants and causing shortages of food and shelter for other species. Predators act as regulators, ensuring that ecosystems do not collapse under imbalance. Their impact is not just about reducing numbers. It is about maintaining health within populations. Predators tend to target weak, sick, or slower individuals, leaving the stronger animals to survive and reproduce. This natural selection improves the overall health of prey populations and prevents the spread of disease. Over time, this maintains a balance where resources are shared efficiently among species, and no single population overwhelms the ecosystem. Predators also influence behavior and movement patterns of other animals. For example, herbivores may avoid certain areas to reduce risk of being hunted, allowing plants in those areas to grow more freely. This creates a dynamic equilibrium between species, shaping landscapes and resource distribution naturally. Without predators, ecosystems would lose structure and energy flow would be disrupted. Plants could be overgrazed, herbivore populations would boom and then crash, and decomposers would face imbalances in waste input. Predators prevent these cascading effects, supporting long-term ecosystem stability. Studying predator-prey interactions shows that ecosystems function through self-regulation. Each species, by performing its role, contributes to a system where populations and resources remain balanced, not through design or planning, but through natural interactions that have evolved over millions of years. Predation stabilizes ecosystems rather than destabilizing them. Predators play a critical role in keeping ecosystems balanced. While it might seem that killing other animals would disrupt the system, predation actually helps maintain stability. When predators hunt herbivores or smaller animals, they prevent these populations from becoming too large. Overpopulation of prey can lead to overconsumption of plants or smaller species, which would reduce resources and threaten the survival of many organisms. Predators act as natural regulators, ensuring that populations remain within sustainable limits. This control is not random. Predators often target weaker, slower, or less healthy individuals, which improves the overall health of prey populations. This selective pressure encourages stronger individuals to survive and reproduce, indirectly strengthening the prey population. As a result, ecosystems continue to function efficiently. Even plants benefit from predation because overgrazing is reduced, allowing forests, grasslands, and other habitats to maintain diversity and productivity. Predation also influences behavior and movement. Animals avoid areas where predators are active, which allows certain plant species to grow without being eaten and creates a more even distribution of resources. This dynamic interaction between predators and prey prevents extreme population swings and sudden collapses in ecosystems. In addition, predators help distribute nutrients. When they hunt and feed, they leave remains that decomposers break down, returning nutrients to the soil. This continuous cycle of predation, decomposition, and regrowth ensures energy flows through ecosystems efficiently. Far from causing chaos, predators support the long-term health and stability of the system. Observing ecosystems with and without predators shows clear differences. Areas with predators tend to be more balanced and resilient, while those without can experience overpopulation, resource depletion, and environmental stress. Most ecosystems operate near equilibrium, not maximum productivity. Ecosystems do not aim to produce as much life as possible or grow endlessly. Instead, they operate near equilibrium, where resources, populations, and energy are balanced. For example, a forest may produce enough plants to sustain herbivores and predators, but not so many that the system becomes overcrowded or resource-limited. Equilibrium allows ecosystems to remain stable over long periods, even as individual populations fluctuate. Equilibrium emerges naturally from interactions between organisms and their environment. Plants compete for sunlight, nutrients, and water, which limits their growth. Herbivores consume plants, but not all of them, maintaining a balance between consumption and production. Predators regulate herbivore populations, preventing overgrazing. Decomposers recycle nutrients back into the soil at a rate that matches the input of organic matter. These processes are interconnected, creating a system that remains functional even under changing conditions. Operating near equilibrium also allows ecosystems to respond to disturbances. Populations do not expand too quickly, and resources are not depleted, which reduces the risk of collapse. Unlike maximum productivity, where resources might be used faster than they are replenished, equilibrium provides resilience. It ensures that ecosystems can survive variations in climate, availability of water, and seasonal changes without losing their structure. Studying equilibrium helps scientists understand why some ecosystems are more resilient than others. Tropical rainforests, coral reefs, and wetlands all maintain balance despite constant activity, demonstrating that stability is more important than rapid growth. Life thrives not because it maximizes output, but because it adjusts to the limits of energy and resources. Sudden changes are absorbed through biological redundancy. Ecosystems are not fragile systems. Even when unexpected events occur, such as storms, droughts, fires, or floods, ecosystems have built-in mechanisms to absorb these shocks. One of the key ways they do this is through biological redundancy. This means multiple species often perform similar roles within a system. For example, several species of decomposers break down organic matter, and multiple herbivores consume similar plants. If one species declines or disappears, others continue the function, preventing the system from collapsing. Redundancy also exists in pollinators. Many different insects pollinate the same types of plants. If one pollinator species declines due to environmental stress, others ensure reproduction still occurs. This overlap ensures that essential ecological processes like nutrient cycling, energy transfer, and reproduction continue uninterrupted. The concept of redundancy explains why ecosystems are resilient. They can withstand sudden changes without losing their ability to function. When disturbances occur, species may shift roles, adjust populations, or migrate, allowing the system to recover. Even when damage is visible, the underlying processes continue, enabling regeneration over time. Redundancy also applies to energy storage. Plants store energy in roots, seeds, or underground structures, which supports survival during unfavorable conditions. Similarly, soil microorganisms and fungi maintain nutrient cycles even when above-ground populations decline. By distributing critical roles across multiple species, ecosystems ensure that no single failure causes collapse. Observing how ecosystems respond to sudden changes demonstrates that resilience comes from interconnected species and shared functions, not from central control or planning. Multiple species often perform similar roles. In ecosystems, many species do similar jobs, even if they are not related. For example, several types of insects, birds, and mammals may all feed on the same plant or pollinate the same flowers. Likewise, multiple types of fungi and bacteria decompose dead material. This overlap is not a result of planning. It emerges naturally because life evolves to fill available niches. When different species perform similar roles, ecosystems gain flexibility. If one species declines or disappears, others can continue the same function, maintaining the flow of energy and nutrients. This redundancy is important because ecosystems are constantly facing challenges. Changes in climate, natural disasters, or the arrival of new species can affect populations. When roles are shared, these disruptions do not cause collapse. For example, if a bee species disappears in a forest, other insects may take over pollination. Similarly, if one predator declines, other predators may adjust and hunt prey in its place. This system of shared responsibilities allows ecosystems to adapt to unexpected changes while continuing essential processes. Multiple species performing similar roles also contribute to biodiversity. Different species may interact with the same resources in slightly different ways, creating variations that improve efficiency. For instance, some birds may eat seeds from tall plants while others feed on low shrubs, covering more of the environment. In aquatic ecosystems, different fish species may feed on overlapping groups of algae, reducing overgrowth while maintaining balance. Observing these patterns reveals that ecosystems function as networks of interdependent species, where shared roles provide stability, resilience, and continuity, even in the face of environmental stress. This overlap protects ecosystems from single points of failure. Ecosystems are resilient because no single species controls the entire system. The redundancy of species performing similar roles prevents catastrophic failure if one group disappears. For example, in a forest, multiple decomposer species recycle dead plant material. If one species is affected by disease or environmental changes, others continue the process. This ensures that nutrients remain available for plants, which in turn support herbivores and predators. The same principle applies to food chains. Herbivores feed on overlapping plant species, and predators feed on overlapping herbivores. If a single herbivore population collapses, predators can switch to other prey, preventing their own decline. Similarly, pollinators overlap in the plants they service, so the disappearance of one pollinator does not stop plant reproduction. This overlap creates a buffer that keeps ecosystems functioning even under stress. Redundancy also supports recovery from disturbances. After a fire, flood, or drought, species with similar roles can repopulate affected areas, re-establishing essential ecological functions. This built-in insurance allows ecosystems to withstand shocks without collapsing. Studying redundancy shows that ecosystems are designed not for maximum efficiency at all times, but for stability and survival. Life on Earth continues because these overlapping roles protect ecosystems from sudden failure, demonstrating that natural systems can maintain balance without central control or management. Decomposition is a controlled breakdown process, not decay. When plants, animals, or other organisms die, their bodies do not simply rot randomly. Instead, decomposition is a structured process carried out by bacteria, fungi, insects, and other organisms. These decomposers break down dead material in stages, converting it into nutrients that can be reused by living organisms. The process is controlled, efficient, and essential for ecosystem survival. Decomposition begins with microbes and small invertebrates breaking down soft tissues. As these organisms consume the material, they release nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium into the soil. Larger decomposers, such as earthworms, then mix this material deeper into the ground, improving soil structure and fertility. At every stage, the breakdown is gradual and timed to match the ecosystem's needs. This prevents nutrient loss and ensures that new plants have access to the energy and minerals they require. The controlled nature of decomposition also prevents the buildup of waste. Without decomposers, ecosystems would quickly be covered in dead material, blocking sunlight, attracting disease, and disrupting food webs. Instead, decomposition recycles energy, maintaining the flow from plants to herbivores to predators. This process demonstrates that even seemingly chaotic events like death are part of a carefully balanced system that keeps life moving. Decomposition also interacts with other ecological processes. Water retention, soil fertility, and microbial activity all depend on the recycling of organic material. Observing decomposition shows that life is self-sustaining. Energy and nutrients are never lost but continuously reused. By understanding decomposition, we see that ecosystems operate through controlled cycles, not random decay, and every organism contributes to maintaining long-term stability. Bacteria and fungi return nutrients at precise rates. In ecosystems, the breakdown of organic material is not random. Bacteria and fungi work continuously to return nutrients to the soil at rates that match the needs of plants and other organisms. For example, when leaves, dead insects, or animal remains fall to the ground, bacteria begin breaking down soft tissues, while fungi work on tougher material like wood and plant fibers. These organisms release essential nutrients such as nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium gradually, ensuring they are available for plants over time. This controlled release is important because ecosystems rely on balance. If nutrients were returned too quickly, plants could grow too fast, exhausting water and sunlight and destabilizing the system. If nutrients were released too slowly, plant growth would be limited, reducing food for herbivores and energy for predators. The pace of decomposition and nutrient cycling has evolved naturally over millions of years to match the energy needs of the ecosystem. Bacteria and fungi also interact with other organisms to maintain efficiency. Roots of plants absorb the nutrients released, while soil invertebrates mix the material deeper into the soil. This coordination is not planned, but happens through natural responses to the environment. As a result, nutrients are constantly cycled, energy flows through food webs efficiently, and ecosystems remain productive and stable. By studying nutrient cycling, scientists have discovered that the rate of decomposition varies with temperature, moisture, and the type of material. These natural adjustments ensure that life can continue even in changing conditions. The precision of bacteria and fungi shows that small organisms have a massive impact on ecosystem stability, regulating the availability of energy and materials without oversight or control. Without decomposers, ecosystems would stop functioning. Decomposers, including bacteria, fungi, and insects, are the foundation of every ecosystem. Without them, dead plants, animals, and other organic matter would accumulate, blocking sunlight, reducing soil fertility, and preventing the recycling of nutrients. Herbivores and predators would eventually run out of food, causing populations to collapse. Essentially, decomposers allow life to continue by returning energy and nutrients to the base of the system. Decomposers operate systematically. They break down soft tissues first and then tackle tougher materials like wood or bones. Each group has a specialized role, which ensures that nothing is wasted. For example, fungi can break down cellulose and lignin that most other organisms cannot digest. Earthworms and other burrowing invertebrates mix decomposed material into soil, improving aeration and water retention. This combination of decomposition and nutrient redistribution supports plant growth, which in turn supports herbivores and higher levels of the food chain. The absence of decomposers would quickly lead to environmental collapse. Dead material would pile up, creating barriers for new growth. Nutrients would become trapped and unavailable, causing energy shortages for all living organisms. Even the simplest ecosystems, like ponds or grasslands, depend on decomposers to function. Observing ecosystems demonstrates that decomposers are not just participants, they are essential regulators. Their continuous activity ensures that life can continue, making them invisible but critical engineers of stability. Decomposers show that life is interconnected. They illustrate that ecosystems operate efficiently, not because of oversight, but because species have evolved roles that keep the system functional. Without them, energy flow, nutrient cycling, and population balance would all fail. Waste does not exist in natural systems. In ecosystems, nothing is truly wasted. When plants, animals, or microorganisms die, their remains are broken down by decomposers and converted into nutrients that support new growth. Even animal waste is recycled. Urine and feces are rich in nutrients, and bacteria or fungi process them, returning essential elements to the soil. This creates a continuous loop where energy and matter are reused, ensuring that ecosystems remain productive without external inputs. The idea of waste only exists when humans intervene or remove natural processes. In a forest, fallen leaves feed insects and fungi. These organisms, in turn, enrich the soil for plants. Dead animals become food for scavengers and decomposers, releasing nutrients that sustain other life. Energy and materials cycle continuously, forming a closed system where all components serve a purpose. This efficient recycling also contributes to ecosystem stability. Nutrients are available when needed, water is retained in soil, and energy flows steadily through food chains. By reusing materials, ecosystems reduce the risk of collapse during environmental stress, such as drought or disease. This shows that natural systems are self-sufficient, maintaining life through interconnected processes that operate without central control. Studying this reveals an important lesson. Every organism, from bacteria to large predators, participates in cycles that sustain life. Waste is a human concept. In nature, energy and materials are always repurposed. Observing these cycles highlights the efficiency and resilience of ecosystems, proving that life organizes itself to recycle and preserve essential resources without planning or direction. Materials cycle continuously between living and non-living states. In ecosystems, matter never disappears. It simply moves between living organisms and the non-living environment. When plants absorb nutrients from the soil, they convert them into tissues, leaves, stems, and fruits. Herbivores and omnivores eat these plants, transferring nutrients into their own bodies. Predators then eat herbivores, moving the nutrients further along the food chain. When any organism dies, decomposers break it down, returning the nutrients to the soil, water, or air. This cycle includes elements like carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus. Carbon, for example, is stored in plant tissue, released through respiration by animals, or returned to the soil when plants and animals decompose. Nitrogen, which is essential for proteins and DNA, is absorbed by plants in the soil, passed along to herbivores, and eventually returned to the soil by decomposers and microorganisms. Phosphorus, found in bones and tissues, follows a similar cycle. The continuous cycling of materials ensures that ecosystems remain productive without requiring external input. Nutrients are reused over and over, supporting multiple generations of plants, animals, and microorganisms. This process also prevents the buildup of harmful materials. For instance, waste from animals is decomposed and recycled rather than accumulating to toxic levels. Studying these cycles shows that life and the environment are interconnected. The movement of matter between living and non-living components is predictable and balanced, even though no organism directs it. This natural recycling demonstrates the efficiency of ecosystems and explains why Earth can support such diverse life. The constant movement of materials ensures that energy flows, populations are sustained, and ecosystems remain resilient over time. Water acts as the primary transport system for nutrients. Water is essential for all life, but it also plays a unique role as the main transporter of nutrients in ecosystems. When rain falls, it dissolves minerals and organic compounds in soil and carries them to plant roots. Plants absorb these nutrients, which then move through the food chain as herbivores and predators consume them. Water carries nutrients in rivers, lakes, and streams, allowing distant ecosystems to receive essential materials. In addition to transporting nutrients in the soil, water helps regulate temperature and supports chemical reactions in living organisms. Aquatic plants, algae, and microorganisms rely entirely on water to receive dissolved nutrients. Even in terrestrial ecosystems, water infiltrates the ground and moves nutrients deeper, making them available to plants with larger root systems. Without water, nutrients would remain locked in the soil or in decaying matter, slowing ecosystem processes. Water also distributes energy indirectly. By moving nutrients to plants, it allows them to grow and capture sunlight through photosynthesis. That energy then moves up the food chain. During floods or heavy rainfall, water can carry nutrient-rich sediments to new areas, enriching soil and supporting life in previously less fertile zones. This shows how water connects chemical cycles, energy flow, and ecosystem productivity. The transport of nutrients through water highlights the interdependence of living and non-living components. Rivers, rain, and groundwater do more than provide hydration. They move the essential building blocks of life. Ecosystems rely on this natural transport system to function efficiently and remain balanced over time, demonstrating how interconnected the planet truly is. Rivers connect ecosystems that never physically touch. Rivers and streams act as natural highways, linking ecosystems separated by miles of land. Nutrients, sediments, and even organisms can travel along waterways, supporting life in regions that would otherwise be isolated. For example, fish eggs or plankton can move downstream, allowing populations to expand and colonize new habitats. Rivers carry mineral-rich sediments from mountains to plains, enriching soil and promoting plant growth far from the original source. This connection allows energy and materials to flow between ecosystems. A forest upstream contributes leaves and organic matter to rivers, which feed downstream wetlands, estuaries, and even coastal oceans. Predators, herbivores, and decomposers in these connected areas rely on the nutrients transported from distant ecosystems. Rivers create continuity, linking mountains, valleys, forests, and wetlands into a single functional system despite physical separation. Rivers also provide migration routes for animals. Fish swim upstream to spawn, birds follow river corridors during seasonal migration, and mammals use riverbanks as travel paths. These movements increase biodiversity and support the spread of species into new areas. The flow of water ensures that isolated ecosystems are not entirely independent. Instead, they interact, exchange nutrients, and maintain global ecological balance. Observing rivers shows that ecosystems are not isolated units. They are parts of a larger, interconnected system where energy, nutrients, and species move naturally across landscapes. This connection demonstrates how ecosystems rely on constant interaction with one another, even when separated by distance, creating a planet-wide web of life. Wetlands filter water through biological processes, not chemistry. Wetlands, including marshes, swamps, and bogs, act as natural filters for water, but they do so through living organisms rather than chemical treatments. Plants, bacteria, fungi, and microorganisms work together to remove excess nutrients, toxins, and sediments from water that passes through these areas. For example, wetland plants absorb nitrogen and phosphorus from runoff, while bacteria in the soil break down organic waste. This process prevents harmful substances from reaching rivers, lakes, or oceans. The efficiency of wetlands comes from the interactions of many species. Roots trap sediments, slowing water flow and allowing particles to settle. Microbes decompose organic matter, transforming it into nutrients that plants can reuse. Insects, amphibians, and other small animals contribute by consuming decaying material and recycling nutrients. This biological system operates without planning or machinery, yet it maintains high water quality and ecosystem health. Wetlands also prevent flooding by absorbing excess rainwater. Their filtering process ensures that water leaving wetlands is cleaner and safer for downstream ecosystems and human use. Scientists have studied wetlands extensively, and found that they can remove pollutants more effectively than artificial systems in some cases, because living organisms adjust naturally to changing conditions. The process highlights the power of biological networks. By working together, plants, microbes, and animals stabilize the water system, supporting biodiversity while maintaining ecological balance. Wetlands demonstrate that natural processes often outperform human-made interventions when it comes to efficiency and adaptability. Understanding wetlands shows that ecosystems are not just habitats. They are functional systems that process materials, regulate water, and sustain life. This filtering occurs continuously, silently, and reliably, revealing how interconnected species maintain environmental stability without external control. Oceans regulate planetary temperature by storing excess heat. Oceans are massive heat reservoirs that play a crucial role in keeping Earth's climate stable. Water has a high capacity for storing heat, meaning it can absorb energy from the sun during warm periods and release it slowly when temperatures drop. This storage reduces temperature extremes on land and helps maintain conditions suitable for life. Without oceans buffering heat, many regions would experience dramatic and rapid swings in climate, making survival for plants and animals much more difficult. The circulation of ocean water distributes heat globally. Warm water moves from the tropics toward the poles, while colder water moves toward the equator, creating currents like the Gulf Stream. These movements not only transport heat, but also influence weather patterns, rainfall, and wind systems. Marine ecosystems play a part in this regulation too. Phytoplankton absorbs sunlight and carbon dioxide, while microscopic organisms and larger marine life contribute to carbon storage in the deep ocean. Oceans also act as shock absorbers for extreme events. When there is excess solar energy, oceans store it instead of allowing it to cause extreme heat on land. Similarly, heat absorbed in one year can be released slowly over decades, moderating global climate trends. The stability of temperature is critical for ecosystems, agriculture, and human populations. Observing oceans demonstrates how interconnected life and physical systems are. Marine ecosystems, currents, and heat storage all work together to sustain conditions on Earth. This shows that planetary systems are self-regulating through natural processes, with oceans serving as the backbone of climate stability. Marine ecosystems respond slowly, buffering rapid change. Life in the oceans often reacts more slowly to environmental changes than land-based ecosystems, but this slow response provides a buffer that protects both marine and terrestrial life. For example, when nutrient levels or temperatures fluctuate, ocean organisms gradually adjust through migration, reproduction, or population shifts. This slow adaptation prevents sudden collapses and allows the energy and nutrient cycles to continue uninterrupted. Coral reefs, kelp forests, and plankton communities illustrate this principle. Plankton populations may rise or fall in response to sunlight, temperature, or nutrient availability, but the ecosystem remains functional because multiple species perform similar roles. Predators and decomposers adjust to these changes, maintaining energy flow and nutrient cycling. Even major events like storms or temporary temperature spikes are absorbed because marine organisms and currents distribute impacts over time and space. The slow response of oceans also stabilizes climate. Because water heats and cools gradually, changes in temperature do not immediately cause catastrophic effects. This provides time for ecosystems to adapt to new conditions, supporting resilience in both marine and terrestrial habitats. Rivers and coastal systems also benefit from this buffering, as gradual nutrient release supports life downstream without sudden shocks. By observing marine ecosystems, scientists learn that time is a natural stabilizer. Rapid changes in one area rarely collapse the system because biological and physical processes operate over extended periods. The slow but steady response of oceans ensures that energy, nutrients, and populations remain in balance, demonstrating nature's ability to buffer extreme events without central control or planning. Disturbance is expected in ecological systems. Ecosystems are not static. They are constantly experiencing changes caused by both natural and human activities. Disturbances, such as storms, droughts, fires, or even species migrations, are normal and expected parts of ecological systems. Rather than destabilizing ecosystems completely, these events often create opportunities for renewal and adaptation. Understanding that disturbance is a natural feature helps explain why ecosystems are resilient and capable of long-term survival. Disturbances can alter population sizes, redistribute resources, and open spaces for new organisms to colonize. For example, when a tree falls in a forest, sunlight reaches the forest floor, allowing small plants to grow where none could before. Similarly, small floods may deposit nutrient-rich sediments in floodplains, supporting plant growth in the next season. These disruptions are not random chaos. They trigger processes that maintain diversity and productivity. The predictability of disturbance is part of what allows ecosystems to remain balanced. Many species have adapted specifically to take advantage of these events. Some plants have seeds that remain dormant until a specific environmental cue occurs, such as fire or flooding. This shows that ecosystems are designed, or rather, have evolved, to expect and respond to periodic changes, rather than remain unchanged indefinitely. Disturbances also prevent dominance by a single species. Without occasional disruption, fast-growing species could monopolize resources, reducing diversity. By reshuffling populations and resources, disturbances maintain balance and allow multiple species to coexist. This demonstrates that ecosystems are self-organizing systems. Even though disturbances may appear destructive at first, they are critical for maintaining long-term stability, resilience, and productivity. Fires, floods, and storms reset conditions rather than destroy them. Natural events like fires, floods, and storms often seem catastrophic, but they serve a larger ecological purpose. These events reset environmental conditions, removing accumulated waste, opening new spaces for growth, and redistributing nutrients. For example, forest fires burn old vegetation but release nutrients stored in leaves, wood, and debris back into the soil, creating fertile ground for new plants. Floods also redistribute sediments and nutrients across landscapes. When rivers overflow, they carry mineral-rich soil to floodplains, replenishing areas that may have been depleted. Storms may damage trees or uproot plants, but they also allow sunlight to reach previously shaded areas, giving smaller plants a chance to grow. These events create a dynamic environment where ecosystems are constantly reorganizing, which prevents stagnation and maintains diversity. Even though such events can seem destructive in the short term, ecosystems are adapted to recover quickly. Plants may regrow from roots or seeds that survive disturbances, animals may migrate to safer areas, and microbial communities can rapidly rebuild nutrient cycles. Disturbances serve as natural resets that maintain ecological balance, rather than as purely destructive forces. Observing how ecosystems respond to fires, floods, and storms shows that resilience comes from the system's ability to reorganize itself. Energy flow, nutrient cycling, and population balance are restored efficiently, demonstrating that ecosystems are not fragile. Instead, they are dynamic networks capable of enduring and benefiting from periodic resets. Some species only reproduce after environmental disruption. Certain plants and animals have evolved to depend on disturbances for reproduction. For example, some types of pine trees produce seeds that only open after exposure to fire. The heat of the flames triggers seed release, ensuring that seedlings grow in nutrient-rich soil with reduced competition. Similarly, some insects and amphibians reproduce after floods or seasonal storms, taking advantage of temporary habitats and increased resource availability. These species rely on timing and environmental cues rather than luck. Dormant seeds, eggs, or spores may remain inactive for years, waiting for the right trigger. This adaptation ensures that reproduction occurs under favorable conditions, increasing the survival chances of the next generation. By reproducing only after disruption, these organisms prevent overcrowding and maximize resource use, contributing to overall ecosystem stability. This strategy demonstrates that what appears destructive, fire, flood, or storm, is actually an essential part of life cycles. Disturbances create conditions that are critical for the survival of certain species, showing that ecosystems function through cycles of destruction and renewal. It also highlights the interconnectedness of life, where species survival depends not just on individual effort but on natural processes that have shaped evolutionary strategies over millions of years. Studying these adaptations helps scientists understand how ecosystems maintain resilience. Disruption is not a threat. It is an opportunity embedded in the design of natural systems, allowing species to thrive and ecosystems to regenerate continuously. Ecosystems store recovery mechanisms in seed banks and spores. Ecosystems have built-in ways to recover from disturbances, and one of the most important is the storage of seeds, spores, and other dormant life forms. Many plants produce seeds that remain inactive in soil for years, waiting for the right conditions to germinate. Similarly, fungi, bacteria, and algae produce spores that can survive extreme heat, dryness, or cold for long periods. These natural reserves act as a backup system for ecosystems, ensuring that life can restart even after major events like fires, floods, or droughts. Seed banks in soil are not random. They are carefully distributed through natural processes. Plants drop seeds near parent plants, animals carry seeds to new locations, and wind and water distribute them further. Over time, soil accumulates layers of seeds representing multiple generations. When a disturbance clears an area, these seeds receive sunlight, water, or heat signals and begin to grow. Spores of fungi and bacteria work in similar ways, activating when environmental conditions improve, ensuring the continuation of decomposition, nutrient cycling, and symbiotic relationships with plants. This storage system allows ecosystems to be resilient without requiring external control. Life forms do not need supervision or intervention to recover. They simply follow the natural cues in their environment. Even ecosystems that seem devastated, like burned forests or floodplains, have dormant life ready to reestablish balance. Studying these mechanisms demonstrates the remarkable foresight of evolution. By storing potential life in seeds and spores, ecosystems ensure continuity, maintain biodiversity, and recover efficiently from unexpected events. It also highlights that life is interconnected across time and space. The dormant life waiting in soil or water is as crucial to an ecosystem as the plants and animals actively growing above the ground. These systems activate automatically after damage. The seeds, spores, and dormant organisms stored in ecosystems do not need humans or animals to trigger them. They respond automatically to environmental cues. Fire, flooding, heavy rain, or temperature changes can signal these reserves to activate. For instance, some pine seeds open only after exposure to heat, ensuring seedlings grow in nutrient-rich soil with reduced competition. Flooded wetlands trigger the hatching of dormant aquatic insects, while droughts may stimulate certain desert plants to germinate quickly after rainfall. Automatic activation ensures ecosystems recover quickly and efficiently. Once a disturbance occurs, dormant life immediately begins processes like germination, decomposition, and nutrient cycling. Soil microbes awaken, roots grow into the soil, and small animals emerge, all without conscious effort or planning. This self-activating system stabilizes the ecosystem after damage and prevents long-term collapse. Even large-scale disturbances, such as hurricanes or volcanic eruptions, are buffered by these systems. Ecosystems with rich seed banks and spore reserves recover faster than those without. The timing is natural, precise, and adapted to the frequency of disturbances in a particular environment. Over evolutionary time, ecosystems have optimized these mechanisms to match their local conditions, ensuring that recovery is predictable and reliable. Observing how life activates automatically after damage highlights nature's efficiency. Ecosystems operate on principles of self-regulation, using stored potential to maintain continuity and resilience. Life rebounds not by chance, but because these systems are inherently designed to respond to changes in their environment. Biodiversity increases long-term system stability. Ecosystems with many species tend to be more stable over time than those with fewer species. Each species plays a role, often overlapping with others, creating a network of interactions that distributes energy, nutrients, and responsibilities. If one species is lost, others can compensate, preventing collapse. High biodiversity acts like an insurance policy, ensuring ecosystems continue functioning under stress. For example, in a forest with many plant species, some will survive droughts, pests, or fires even if others fail. Multiple pollinators ensure that plants reproduce even if one insect species declines. Different decomposers recycle organic matter under varying conditions, maintaining nutrient availability. Predators of different sizes and behaviors control herbivore populations, preventing overgrazing. This interconnected web distributes risk across many species rather than placing it on a single organism. Biodiversity also supports ecosystem productivity. More species mean more ways to capture energy, recycle nutrients, and adapt to changing environments. Diverse ecosystems are better at absorbing disturbances like storms, floods, or human impacts. Even slow changes, such as climate shifts, are less likely to destabilize highly diverse systems. Studying biodiversity shows why preserving multiple species is crucial. Ecosystem stability depends not just on individual species, but on the network of interactions among all species. The greater the variety, the stronger the system's resilience, energy flow, and long-term survival. This principle explains why ecosystems with high biodiversity, like tropical rainforests or coral reefs, can endure natural disturbances and continue to thrive. Fewer species mean faster collapse under stress. Ecosystems with low biodiversity are fragile because each species represents a larger share of essential functions. When there are only a few species performing key roles, the loss of even one can trigger a chain reaction that destabilizes the system. For example, in an ecosystem with only one pollinator species, The decline of that species could prevent plants from reproducing, which in turn affects herbivores and predators. Similarly, if a single predator or decomposer is lost, population imbalances or nutrient shortages can occur rapidly. Low biodiversity limits flexibility. With fewer species, there is less redundancy in roles such as nutrient cycling, predation, pollination, and decomposition. Without backup species to step in, the ecosystem cannot compensate for disturbances like droughts, disease outbreaks, or sudden temperature changes. A single disruptive event can therefore have a much larger impact compared to a diverse system. This explains why monocultures in agriculture are highly vulnerable to pests or disease. When only one crop is grown over large areas, the loss of that crop affects the entire system, demonstrating how low species variety reduces resilience. In contrast, natural ecosystems with high biodiversity survive disturbances because multiple species can fulfill similar functions, maintain energy flow, and stabilize populations. Studying ecosystems with fewer species highlights the importance of maintaining diversity for long-term survival. Loss of biodiversity increases the risk of collapse under stress, showing that ecosystems are not just networks of organisms. They are networks of roles, redundancy, and interactions that keep life sustainable. Migration redistributes energy across continents. Many animals move over long distances to find food, water, or suitable breeding grounds, transferring energy from one ecosystem to another. Birds flying thousands of miles carry nutrients in their bodies and excrement, pollinate plants along their route, and provide food for predators at stopover points. Fish and marine mammals migrate through oceans, linking nutrient cycles across vast distances. Even insects, like butterflies and locusts, redistribute energy and resources through seasonal movement. Migration allows ecosystems separated by geography to remain interconnected. Nutrients captured in one region can support life far away. For example, migratory fish feed in one part of the ocean and return to freshwater rivers to spawn, carrying nutrients upstream. Similarly, birds may consume seeds or insects in one area and excrete them in another, facilitating plant reproduction and population growth in distant ecosystems. These movements help ecosystems recover from local imbalances. If one area is nutrient poor, migratory species bring energy or materials from more abundant regions. Migration also supports biodiversity, as it enables gene flow between populations, reduces competition, and helps maintain species distributions across continents. Observing migration shows that life on Earth is not confined to local systems. Energy, nutrients, and species move naturally across vast distances, creating a global network of interconnected ecosystems. Migration illustrates that ecosystems function as part of a larger planetary web, where energy and resources are continually redistributed to maintain balance and productivity. Seasonal movement synchronizes distant ecosystems. Many species follow predictable seasonal patterns, which link ecosystems across different regions. Birds, mammals, fish, and insects time their migrations to match breeding, feeding, and climate cycles. These synchronized movements allow ecosystems in one area to benefit from life cycles occurring thousands of miles away. For instance, Arctic birds migrate to tropical regions during winter, feeding on insects and fruit while providing nutrients and seeds along their journey. This seasonal rhythm aligns ecological processes across continents. Predator-prey interactions, plant pollination, and nutrient cycling all adjust to the arrival or departure of migratory species. In freshwater systems, salmon return from the ocean to rivers in precise seasons, providing nutrients to terrestrial and aquatic organisms alike. In deserts, migratory insects appear after rains, triggering blooms and supporting food webs. Synchronization reduces competition and maintains energy flow. Species time reproduction, feeding, and migration so that resources are available and populations remain balanced. This connection shows that ecosystems are not isolated. Events in one system influence distant systems through the movement of species. Studying seasonal movement reveals the hidden networks that connect ecosystems globally. Energy, nutrients, and populations are coordinated across continents, not by planning, but through natural cycles and biological cues. Seasonal migration ensures that life remains interconnected, resilient, and productive, demonstrating the complexity and balance of planetary ecology. No ecosystem exists in isolation. Every ecosystem on Earth is connected to others through energy flow, nutrient cycles, water movement, and species interactions. Even ecosystems that seem remote, like mountaintop forests or isolated deserts, are linked to nearby rivers, oceans, and air currents. Birds, insects, and wind carry seeds, pollen, and nutrients from one place to another. Rivers transport minerals and organic matter to distant areas. Oceans distribute heat and nutrients across continents, influencing climate and supporting life far from their origin. These connections mean that changes in one ecosystem can affect others. For example, deforestation in the Amazon can influence rainfall patterns in North America or Africa. Pollution in one river can impact oceans and coastal wetlands thousands of miles away. Migratory species link ecosystems across the globe by moving energy, nutrients, and even organisms from one habitat to another. Understanding these connections highlights the importance of thinking about ecosystems as parts of a larger network rather than isolated units. The health of one ecosystem is tied to the health of others. Conservation efforts must consider these links, because protecting a single area may not be enough if surrounding ecosystems are damaged. Ecosystems are dynamic networks. No species, nutrient cycle, or water system operates alone. Energy, materials, and life itself move continuously, connecting landscapes and oceans into a planetary system. This interconnection ensures stability, resilience, and the long-term survival of life, showing that the world's ecosystems are truly interdependent. Human systems now function as ecological forces. Humans have become one of the most significant influences on ecosystems worldwide. Cities, agriculture, transportation networks, and industry now affect the flow of energy, nutrients, and species across the planet. Human activity alters landscapes, climate, and biodiversity, creating new interactions and sometimes disrupting natural cycles. For instance, damming rivers changes water flow, affecting aquatic ecosystems far downstream. Agricultural runoff introduces nutrients that can create algae blooms in oceans, altering marine food chains. Even activities like planting trees or creating urban green spaces influence local ecosystems. Humans introduce new species intentionally or accidentally, such as crops, pets, or invasive organisms. These changes affect competition, predation, and nutrient cycling. Human systems also impact the atmosphere by releasing greenhouse gases, which influence climate patterns, rainfall, and temperature, affecting ecosystems worldwide. Despite the disruption, human influence can also have stabilizing or restorative effects. Conservation programs, reforestation projects, and wildlife reserves can restore ecological balance, demonstrating that humans function as powerful ecological forces capable of both harm and repair. Studying human impacts reveals how interconnected human activity and natural ecosystems have become. Energy, nutrients, and species now move not only through natural processes, but also through roads, ships, and agricultural systems. Humans have effectively joined the global network of ecological forces, whether intentionally or not, reshaping the rules of natural interactions. Urban environments form new ecosystems with altered rules. Cities and towns create ecosystems that differ significantly from natural ones. Urban areas contain artificial structures, paved surfaces, and altered waterways, which change how species interact and how energy and nutrients flow. Plants and animals that survive in cities must adapt to these conditions. Birds nest on buildings instead of trees, insects feed on ornamental plants, and even microorganisms in soils adapt to chemical inputs from humans. Urban ecosystems often have reduced biodiversity but increased populations of species that tolerate human presence, like pigeons, rats, or certain weeds. These species create new food webs, energy pathways, and nutrient cycles. Human behavior also changes ecological rules. Water flows through drains rather than natural channels. Temperatures rise due to heat from buildings, and artificial lighting affects animal activity. Despite these changes, urban ecosystems function as living systems. Energy moves from humans to pets, plants, and urban wildlife. Decomposers recycle organic waste from gardens, parks, and trash. Migratory birds and insects interact with city habitats, connecting urban areas to natural ecosystems. Cities therefore become active participants in ecological networks, creating new forms of life, adaptation, and interaction under a different set of rules. Studying urban ecosystems reveals that life is flexible. Even in human-altered environments, species find ways to survive, interact, and maintain cycles of energy and nutrients. These ecosystems may be artificial, but they demonstrate the resilience and adaptability of life, showing that ecological processes continue even under entirely new conditions. Some species adapt faster than expected. In ecosystems, certain species can change their behavior, diet, or reproduction rates much more quickly than scientists once believed. These rapid adaptations allow them to survive environmental changes such as temperature shifts, new predators, or habitat loss. For example, some insects develop resistance to chemicals in just a few generations. Birds may alter migration patterns in response to climate change or urban development, finding new food sources or nesting areas. Even plants can respond quickly by producing seeds that germinate under altered conditions or growing faster in response to increased sunlight. These fast adaptations demonstrate that ecosystems are not rigid. Species constantly interact with their environment, and natural selection favors traits that improve survival. The ability to adapt quickly provides stability to ecosystems because these species continue to fulfill their roles in energy flow, pollination, predation, and decomposition. Without this flexibility, disturbances could have far more destructive effects. Rapid adaptation also affects competition and population dynamics. A species that adapts quickly may outcompete slower species, altering predator-prey relationships and nutrient cycling. However, ecosystems have multiple species performing similar roles, so faster adaptation in one species rarely collapses the system entirely. Instead, it contributes to a resilient, self-regulating network where life can survive unpredictable changes. Observing rapid adaptation reveals that life is not passive. It actively responds to challenges. Ecosystems are dynamic networks where speed of response varies among species, but the overall system maintains balance. This principle explains why life continues to thrive even in highly variable or human-altered environments. Others disappear without immediate effects. Not all species that vanish cause an immediate collapse in an ecosystem. Some species may play minor or redundant roles, meaning their loss does not create noticeable changes right away. For example, if a single type of herbivore or small predator disappears, other species with overlapping roles may take over its functions. Similarly, a rare plant species may go extinct locally without affecting the overall energy flow or nutrient cycles in the ecosystem. The delayed impact does not mean the loss is insignificant. Even if there are no immediate consequences, removing species can reduce ecosystem redundancy and weaken long-term resilience. If additional stress occurs, such as disease, climate shifts, or further species loss, the system may fail more quickly because fewer organisms are available to perform essential roles. This phenomenon highlights the hidden complexity of ecosystems. Energy flows, nutrient cycles, and species interactions often compensate for losses temporarily, masking the effects of disappearance. Scientists studying ecosystems must consider not only current conditions, but also the potential long-term consequences of species decline. Delayed disappearance also affects biodiversity. Local extinctions may gradually reduce genetic diversity, making populations more vulnerable to environmental changes. Ecosystems with many redundant species handle these losses better than simple systems with few species. Understanding these dynamics shows that ecosystems are resilient yet sensitive, with consequences often hidden until multiple changes accumulate over time. Delayed consequences are common in ecology. In many ecosystems, the effects of changes are not immediately visible. For example, removing a top predator may not show immediate changes in prey populations, but over years, herbivore numbers may grow unchecked, eventually altering plant communities. Similarly, pollution or nutrient changes may not produce obvious effects at first but can accumulate, causing shifts in water quality, soil fertility, or species composition years later. Delayed consequences occur because ecosystems are complex networks with multiple interactions and feedback loops. Some species or processes act as buffers, absorbing initial changes and maintaining stability. Energy and nutrients may be stored in soil, water, or long-lived organisms, delaying observable impacts. These hidden processes allow ecosystems to appear stable even when underlying conditions are changing. Understanding delayed consequences is essential for ecosystem management and conservation. Human actions, such as deforestation, pollution, or introducing invasive species, may appear harmless initially, but their effects can emerge decades later. By studying these delayed responses, scientists can predict potential risks, design better management strategies, and maintain ecosystem resilience over time. These patterns reveal that ecosystems operate over multiple timescales. Immediate responses, slow adjustments, and delayed consequences all interact to maintain balance. Life continues, energy flows, and nutrients cycle, but the full impact of changes often unfolds gradually. Recognizing this principle helps explain why ecosystems are both resilient and sensitive, and why long-term observation is necessary to understand the consequences of change. Feedback loops operate over decades, not days. In ecosystems, feedback loops are processes where the output of one event influences future events, often stabilizing or adjusting the system. Unlike quick reactions, these loops typically take years or decades to show noticeable effects. For example, A forest that loses a small number of trees may not seem affected immediately. However, over decades, changes in sunlight, soil moisture, and nutrient cycling influence which species grow, how animals use the area, and even how carbon is stored. Feedback loops exist at multiple levels. Predator-prey relationships, nutrient cycling, and population dynamics all involve delayed responses. If a predator population grows too large, prey numbers eventually decline, which later causes the predator population to shrink. Similarly, when plants use nutrients faster than they are replenished, soil fertility gradually decreases, affecting future plant growth. These loops prevent ecosystems from becoming unbalanced quickly. The slow pace of feedback loops is what makes ecosystems resilient. Because changes are gradual, systems can absorb disturbances without collapsing. Species have time to adapt, migrate, or change behavior in response to shifts. Humans, by contrast, often expect immediate responses and may overlook these long-term adjustments, underestimating how ecosystems naturally regulate themselves. Observing feedback loops reveals the hidden timing of ecological systems. What appears stable may be constantly adjusting under the surface. Energy flows, population sizes, and nutrient cycles are continuously monitored by the system itself through these natural loops. The delayed nature of feedback ensures that ecosystems remain functional over decades, even under stress, demonstrating the patience and precision of natural regulation. Most ecological change happens too slowly to notice. Changes in ecosystems rarely happen overnight. Forests grow, soils form, and species evolve over years or decades, making most ecological change almost invisible in daily life. For instance, a lake's nutrient balance shifts gradually, affecting algae populations over many seasons. Forest canopies expand slowly, and predator-prey population adjustments can take multiple generations to stabilize. These changes occur in a quiet, continuous manner rather than as sudden events. The slow pace of change allows ecosystems to maintain stability despite constant small disturbances. Plants and animals adapt, move, or reproduce in ways that gradually adjust energy flow, nutrient availability, and population dynamics. Even large-scale processes like soil accumulation, carbon storage, or glacier melt take years to show measurable effects. Because changes are slow, humans often misinterpret ecosystems as being static. In reality, they are continuously adjusting through invisible processes that maintain balance. Small disturbances, migrations, or species losses may go unnoticed until their effects accumulate. By studying long-term patterns, scientists can understand how ecosystems maintain resilience and predict how future changes may affect stability. This slow rhythm is critical for survival. It allows species to adapt, populations to recover, and resources to cycle efficiently. By observing ecosystems over long periods, we learn that life functions through gradual adjustment rather than instant reactions, and that stability is achieved through patience and continuous, often invisible, change. Stability is the result of constant adjustment. Ecosystems appear stable, but this stability is not fixed. It is the product of continuous adjustments made by organisms and environmental processes. Plants grow where resources are available. Herbivores feed where plants are abundant. Predators hunt where prey is plentiful. And decomposers recycle nutrients at rates that match consumption. All these activities occur simultaneously, balancing energy flow and population dynamics. Even when disturbances occur, ecosystems adjust. If a storm damages a forest, surviving plants grow into the open spaces. Animals shift territories or feeding habits. Microbes adjust decomposition rates to match new organic material. These constant adjustments prevent long-term collapse, maintaining equilibrium across species and habitats. Stability also comes from redundancy and feedback. Multiple species perform similar roles, and natural loops regulate population sizes, nutrient cycles, and energy transfer. If one species fails, others compensate, and if resources fluctuate, organisms adjust behaviors. This invisible, ongoing regulation makes ecosystems appear unchanging, even though every part is responding to changes in real time. Understanding stability as constant adjustment changes how we view ecosystems. Life is not static or perfectly balanced. It is dynamic, resilient, and self-regulating. What looks peaceful or stable is actually the result of continuous monitoring, energy redistribution, and adaptation, all without central control. This principle demonstrates that ecosystems maintain long-term survival by responding to every small change, proving the elegance and intelligence of natural systems. Ecology reveals order emerging from interaction, not design. Ecosystems often appear organized and balanced, but this order is not the result of any central plan or intelligent design. Instead, it emerges naturally from countless interactions among organisms and their environment. Plants, animals, microbes, water, and nutrients all respond to each other in ways that create patterns of energy flow, population balance, and nutrient cycling. For example, predator-prey relationships regulate populations. Plants adjust growth based on sunlight and soil nutrients, and decomposers recycle materials to feed new life. This self-organizing system shows that complexity does not require conscious control. Each organism simply acts according to its needs, behaviors, and environmental cues. When millions of these actions occur simultaneously, patterns of stability, productivity, and resilience emerge. Energy moves efficiently through food chains, nutrients cycle continuously, and populations remain balanced over time. The concept of order emerging from interaction also explains why ecosystems can adapt to disturbances. When one species declines or environmental conditions change, other species respond, maintaining system functionality. A new plant may grow in open sunlight created by a fallen tree, or a predator may switch to different prey when its usual food is scarce. These interactions, multiplied across species and environments, create a dynamic but orderly system. Studying ecology reveals that nature's order is different from human-designed systems. There are no managers or blueprints, yet life organizes itself in complex, predictable ways. Patterns such as nutrient cycling, migration, and succession arise automatically through interaction, showing the power of collective behavior over individual control. This principle demonstrates that ecosystems are adaptive, self-correcting, and resilient. Order exists not because someone planned it, but because living and non-living components continually respond to each other, producing stability and balance over time. These systems continue operating, regardless of observation. Ecosystems do not need humans or external observers to function. Energy flows, nutrients cycle, and species interact whether or not anyone is watching. Rivers carry minerals, plants photosynthesize, predators hunt, and decomposers recycle organic matter without awareness or supervision. Life operates on its own rules, following natural processes that maintain balance, stability, and productivity. This independence highlights a key feature of ecology. Systems are self-regulating. Feedback loops, redundancy, and natural responses ensure that populations, energy flows, and nutrient cycles continue uninterrupted. Even in remote forests, deep oceans, or isolated deserts, ecological processes operate silently, maintaining the planet's ability to support life. Observation can reveal patterns and help humans understand these processes, but it does not influence them. A scientist studying a wetland or forest may document interactions, migrations, and cycles, but the ecosystem would function the same way without their presence. Ecosystems respond to internal cues and external forces, not to attention. This principle also underscores the resilience of life. Natural systems continue to adapt, recover, and self-organize even under pressure, showing that the survival of ecosystems is not dependent on awareness. It is the result of complex interactions between living organisms and their environment, all following consistent natural laws. Understanding that ecological systems operate independently teaches a deep lesson about the autonomy of nature. Life and energy move, populations adjust, and nutrients recycle without planning or observation, illustrating that ecosystems are active, intelligent, and continuous networks, silent forces shaping our planet day after day.